Wide Angle Conversations, DEI Talks, an initiative of Life by Design with Taruna Agarwal, raising awareness about the importance of diversity and inclusion and bringing to you insights and best practices from DEI advocates and champions. Welcome to Wide Angle Conversations, DEI Talks. We are in the last quarter of 2021. I'm your host, Taruna Agarwal, and I'm in conversation with Olivia Chua. Hi, Olivia. Welcome to Wide Angle Conversations.
Hi, Taruna. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, Olivia. Let me briefly introduce Olivia to you. Olivia is the Chief Human Resource Officer at Jebsen and Jessen Group. Her experience in human resource and organization development spans the spectrum from strategy design to implementation. She has worked in several countries and is highly adaptable to different cultures and perspectives. Olivia is based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Hi, Olivia, once again.
Hi.
Olivia, you're seen as a leader who walks the talk, who is inclusive, giving everyone on the team the opportunity to contribute and to excel. You have worked with people of different cultural backgrounds. What is your personal narrative around diversity and inclusion?
That's a really good question and probably a very difficult one. When I see diversity and inclusion means that whatever decisions that we make, whether it's a selection or whether you are picking out someone or just talking to anybody, it's just really ensuring that everyone feels that they are included. I think that's just a simple thing for me. Like if you go to a gathering or to a meeting, you're ensuring that everyone on the table, doesn't matter where they're from or what race they are or what gender they are and everything, but everyone feels that they have an opportunity to say something. So that's, to me, a very simple way of looking at diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So, how can having a strong diversity and inclusion agenda, how does that impact the employee experience per se?
Um, Personally, because as just now you have shared that I've worked in different countries, right? So different countries, they are made up with different culture, different races, different nationalities in the different countries, and I
Right.
can see that where we really complement each other in terms of our strengths and weaknesses, which maybe may not be so apparent if you're just like just say one race or one gender. So in terms of the employee experience, when you get to learn of a different culture and you get to learn in terms of how you communicate to them, what it actually means, to them personally, as opposed to you from a different country, it really enriches you in terms of your knowledge and also when you speak to others. To me, as I'm very, very grateful to have that opportunity, whether or not, I was working and living overseas, or when I'm currently in my position right now, where I'm actually looking at 9 countries. It's similar. So even though I'm based in one country, but I'm actually managing 9 countries, it's similar because all these individual countries are actually very different from one to another, and all the cultural aspects are actually very different. So it's actually very interesting for me when I get to know, how do you talk to them, how do you engage them, and it enriches me as a CHRO to do my job better.
Hmm, wonderful. So, as you are sharing also, every business or every organization has unique needs, right? It is important that when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, we tailor, our strategy to the unique needs of
Yeah,
the company and not follow the one size fits all
that's correct.
approach.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what is your organization's current focus for DEI?
I mean, as I honestly shared with you, we don't have like a very specific policy on DEI. I mean, what we have is that, for instance, like, anti-discrimination, those type of policies that we actually have, which we
Hmm.
actually definitely use it, in terms of, our business processes, HR processes and everything. So that's how when we do anything to do with, like, especially HR is involved in the selection process, right? To us, the most important thing is getting the right people in, getting the best people into the organization. Doesn't matter what whether the person is a different race or a different color or anything like that. So that basically is our kind of like main go-to motto or something like that.
So I think that's what it is. But there are many organizations that are really deeply into
Yes.
DEI, but some of them are starting out. But
Yes.
everybody is realizing the value and realizing that it is important.
Mm.
So when an organization really thinks about formalizing DEI, like we're talking about, what could be the barrier? What could block it?
I would say like for if in our case, right, is probably the industry that we're working in, because our industry can be quite male dominated, and let me share. Our industry is basically like, for instance, in the oil and gas refinery, which is really in terms of engineers. When we're looking, it's really mainly males who actually apply for positions. Then we are also in turf and irrigation, which is like our major business is actually golf courses, which is also a lot of male dominated players. Then we also have packaging, which is more into manufacturing. So these are just the different type of industries that we are actually in. We are quite happy when we have that opportunity. Like for instance, like when there are positions that we can actually find like female leaders. I would say that the support from the management is actually very important. And I'm very glad that our top management actually sees the value to bring in more females into our organization. It's just an example in terms of female representation. So for instance, before me, what I recall is that the previous CHROs have always been men. So actually, I'm the only female. And then also we have our first CEO, and that's for she has been in the organization for over 25 years, and she's just been promoted last year to be the CEO of our ingredients business. And then we have set up a shared service hub, and we hired our first general manager, who's also a female, and then our first general director for legal is also a female as well. So I'm actually really, really happy to see that, right? That we're getting more females in, and of course now the management can actually see that, wow, with having more females in, they can actually see the differences in terms of opinions being shared and stuff like that. And I think they do value the diversity in that sense. So I'm quite happy to see that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you really touched upon a very important thing, that it's about the leadership commitment and their accountability, which can actually really drive the DEI agenda of an organization, whether they're starting out or they are already deeply involved in it. So leadership, the role of a leader is very important in driving that. Bias is said to be the main barrier to inclusion. It's the main obstacle, right? You have a vast experience. You've dealt with a lot of people, different countries and cultures. What can you share about bias with us? Do you think it does exist?
Definitely. Unfortunately, right? Even though the countries, in Southeast Asia, we are considered as multicultural, but you experience it. I experienced it when I was in university, and you don't realize that, because when I was in secondary school, I actually didn't feel it at all. But when I went into university, I actually felt it a lot more, which is quite surprising. Then, of course, going to the working space, right? And then you kind of like figure out that certain bosses actually tend to hire certain predominant certain races because they are good in certain skill sets, and then they hire another set of races for other skill sets. And I thought that that in Malaysia, right, that it was I mean, probably I was new and I was thinking that this is kind of unusual, why they're boxing people up. But then when I started working in other countries, especially the Middle East, where I actually spent 2.5 years there, I would say that that is even more apparent. In the Middle East, it's a little bit much harder for females to be in the front line, because they prefer to also deal with males as well. So I think that gave me a very, very different perspective working there, and then coming back. Now I'm in a position where I could actually encourage more, like for instance, that I'm involved more in terms of senior management hiring. So I could encourage more, like when we talk to the headhunters, agency or anybody, in terms of management and stuff like that, and encourage, we should strive to hire more of a balance, in terms of gender or race. I think in that sense that, this is how, I could, provide that value or provide that advice itself. And I'm quite happy in that sense that I am able to do that. But having said that, sometimes it's just more of like, what you receive, right? You only can select from that pool that you receive. So I wish there were more female leaders, that we could have that selection from, but sometimes it's really, really few in terms of the industry that we actually work in.
Right. You are now trying to bring in some policies which are more inclusive in hiring.
Yes, that's
right?
correct. I mean, like similarly, if I just talk about HR, right? HR predominantly are females, right? Although there are quite a number of male leaders in HR, but I found that when I was in Jebsen, I think I can count with. I was thinking of one hand, but actually I can count with one finger that we only had one male when I joined at the time. In terms of, the whole HR team across all the countries, it was very few. Basically, I can count with just one hand. And when I joined and I was looking for, different team members to join the team, to me, it didn't matter to me, whether you're male or female, but basically the best person for the job. And I was quite happy to hire, more males, so more males into the female dominant function. And I could see that, it makes a difference, and that the male is also able to provide, their added value, their own opinions and stuff like that. And it's, I can see it's quite a good balance in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So one way to mitigate this bias is to have that, don't have those stereotypes that we have about this job can be done by X and Y.
Exactly.
But just open up and just have that, break those stereotypes.
Exactly.
That would help.
And also because at the group level, we are considered like a regional operations. So previously, the regional people tend to only be based in Singapore. So that's where our headquarters is. And all of them were actually based in Singapore. So when I joined, obviously I'm based in Malaysia, right? To me was that, when we had like some normal attrition, I would actually replace in another country, because to me, we are regional, right? So regional, we are representing, 9 countries. It doesn't matter where you sit. So I was actually looking out for people from different countries. So in that sense, it gave me a wide array of candidates that I could look at, rather than, just looking at just one country. I can look at all the different countries and see that, where best, I can get the people from. We are more open, in that sense. You can actually get more choice, more choice in terms of your selection for the best talent.
That's right. That's so wonderful. So you just expand your pool. Don't be limited to that.
Yes.
It's about expanding the pool. And many times people say, it's that what is coming to us from the pipeline, but you make your pipeline wider.
Yes.
Go out and look for more candidates. Okay, thank you. That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. Now, coming to our situation right now, where we were just talking before we got on, is the COVID and its impact on all of us, right? We have moved into a virtual world. But for someone in the human resources and for organizations, I think to keep the employees motivated and engaged must have been a challenge. Yeah. How did you keep your through this period, and now 1.5 years or so? How did you keep the employees engaged?
Yeah, I have to say, because I rejoined the company 2 years ago. So I was with them before 5 years ago. And then when I rejoined the company, and I think it was like maybe about 3 months later, COVID happened. So there was a lot of things that, I had actually, had in the pipeline. And one of it was actually our health and wellness. It was a project that I actually look at in terms of integration. As just now I mentioned to you, right? Because our company, we actually have different industries, so different business units, in different industries. So I found that people were more concentrated towards their own industry or towards their own company. So in that sense that, I see diversity in that sense as well, right? That, they are more concentrated on that and they're not really mixing with other people from the different industries. So I came up with this concept called the health and wellness, where these committees will be represented by different business in a particular country, and that committee will then come up with activities so that it will be more inclusive for everyone and everyone can get to know each other. So when COVID happened, of course the easy thing was that, to say that, we can't do this anymore, right? Because we literally just only launched it and then this happened, and all our plans was everything was actually physical, and we couldn't do it anymore. But to me was that, no, we should try to do something about it, right? Maybe we can't really go full blown in terms of physical activities, but let's see what we can do virtually. But when we look at virtual activities, luckily we had this new platform which we are using, which is the O365. We have the Teams platform, and then we started looking at, okay, what activities we can actually do it virtually. So there were two main activities. Number one, that because of health and wellness, right, we focus a lot more in that category. So we were having a lot more talks, virtually. We even ran our sports day virtually. We actually ran a sports day which was 3 weeks, the duration of 3 weeks. And we did that with all countries, all participating. So I think that was the first time people were able to see each other virtually from the different countries. And I think everyone felt really, really excited, and they felt that, it was really engaging as well, even though you're just seeing them virtually, but you're actually cheering people and stuff like that. So that was one of the key things that we actually organized. And another key thing we organized was actually CSR, corporate social responsibility, because we are actually very big on corporate social responsibility. We team up for the first time with Doctors Without Borders. And we did a mapathon for them. So basically, Doctors Without Borders, they go to very, very secluded areas where the maps are not available on Google. So they needed help to draw maps, based on aerial footage. So basically, that's where we came in. We actually helped them to draw maps, houses, and stuff like that, so that they can actually refer to it when they actually have to go for their emergency response and stuff like that. So that's what we did last year. And this year, our second virtual CSR, we team up with Orbis. So Orbis actually help those who are virtually impaired. And what we did is that we actually became their title sponsor for a run and cycle event. And then we also had this opportunity to pair up only for Singapore, actually. We managed to have this opportunity to pair up with those virtually impaired to do a run and cycle with them as well, so that our employees actually have that experience to imagine, how it is to be virtually impaired. Yeah, so this is actually currently running. We're doing this for 40 days.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's lovely. Yeah. So you haven't stopped. It's like we've gone virtual. We've had to explore more things, but you're continuing, and that's something which is, I'm sure, with all these things that you've been doing, you've got a really motivated group of people around you.
I hope so. Yes.
Great, wonderful. So maybe just to kind of conclude, what would be, your aspiration when we talk about diversity and inclusion, say in the next 5 years?
Okay, I'm not saying this because I'm a female, but I definitely would like to see more females in terms of the leadership. I do find they definitely bring different things on the table, in terms of, especially when it comes to engagement with employees, different aspects in terms of how they look at the business, and I just find that it's just it's like a breath of fresh air when you have different parties, and sometimes we find that maybe females tend to be a little bit more quiet, especially Asian females tend to be more quiet. Actually, no, they are actually more aggressive than males sometimes. and I find that they're really go-getters and probably sometimes even more aggressive, I would say. And I'm actually really happy to see the progression, and I hope to see more. And that's my kind of like personal ambition, to get more females on board, and I hope, and I definitely see that our management it's supporting that agenda as well. And as we go towards there, right, definitely focusing more on being more performance driven, and I think that is irrespective, of the gender, of the race, and that's also another aspiration, which is, I know it's not exactly DEI, but definitely something that we are moving towards as well.
Right, wonderful. And I wish you all the best. And we females are 50% of the population or more, so we should have that much representation wherever
Yes.
possible.
Yes. Thank you so much. I hope people find this of value. If anything, my advice to people is that to have do not fear experience and do not fear changes. Sometimes to be able to be brave and to have that courage, you really need to step outside the box, and you will find that you will have the support. So that's just based on my personal experience, because I've been overseas alone, and sometimes you feel that it's so scary, but actually once you've done it, right, you'll find that the universe sometimes help you in a way. That's all I can just encourage people, whether no matter who you are, whatever race you are, whatever. I find that, life experience really enriches you and will give you that additional advantage when you go into the workplace.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you. That was beautiful. And I think it's that you've got to be brave, and the universe supports the brave,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right. Thank you so much, Olivia.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.